All right, it is time to begin, ladies and gentlemen. Pardon me, had to grab my phone because I will be pulling up the pages so I can read it, but also paying attention. Also paying attention to chat as well, so please excuse me. Hybrid, is good to see you. EG, yo! Good to see you. Let me go ahead and get chat up here on my phone so that way I can see you guys. There we go. So that way I can focus on the chapter. All right, let's begin. Yo, peoples! Kyushu92 here. You caught me before I was going to take a shower, so I figured I'd go ahead and knock out the reflections first, and then be all nice and clean afterwards. Well, cleaner afterwards. But it's good to see all of you. And man, it's glitching out again. It is so weird. Like the image. Hold on, let me relook at that image again. Yeah, that is weird how it looks so pixelated. Hold on, can I fix that? That is unacceptable. I don't like that. I don't like how it was pixelated when it shifted from like one screen to the next. I was not a fan of that. How was your day today? For me, it was great. Had a wonderful breakfast, and I've been looking forward to today's looking forward to it. I need to fix whatever settings got changed around when I was messing with this. Let me see if that fixes it. I don't know. I don't know if it will, but it's kind of odd. As long as you guys can hear me, that's fine, but that's something I still need to work on, so apologies for that. We got 3 chapters. Well, firstly, let me say this. Welcome back to yet another One Piece Reflections, where at the end of every month, we go over every chapter we get within a month for One Piece. Now, last month we got the rare, fabled 4 chapters, but we went back to 3 chapters with April, and it was chapters 1145, 1146, and 1147. Lots of focus on the Holy Knights, and also pretty much the Giants and the Straw Hats having to deal with the Holy Knights basically taking all of these children hostage. So now the situation has gotten even more serious, with the latest chapter showing just the amount of depravity that the Holy Knights have over basically any living being. So, to start us off, we have 1145. And 1145 is also the chapter we got after the One Piece anime returned, I believe. So, it was our first foray of One Piece because it had a cover page showing the anime coming back with the Straw Hats watching the entire show. And they also happened to be in clothes that were kind of reminiscent of what they look like when they all joined together again. But then it might just be me and they're just chilling in a room. So, chapter 1145 is Wildfire in Forest Sector 2, Branch Route 8. And here we have Goldberg fighting a giant dinosaur creature. We have a fighting a giant dinosaur creature, and also showing that he has a shield that is autonomous. It is alive, because we also find out that this shield called Nash is actually a homie from Big Mom. Subject 35, hi Q, sorry for my sudden disappearance during Bricky's video yesterday. I fell asleep, and when I woke up, my phone already ran out of battery. Don't feel like you gotta apologize for that. You're fine. Stuff happens. It's fine. Don't feel like you gotta say sorry. You're good. Because at near the tail end of the stream when I was watching Bricky, my eyes kind of glossed over, and you catch it on stream of me just sitting there and my eyes going like this, listening to Bricky, and I caught myself, but it was on camera, so it was, you can see it because I got kind of sleepy just sitting there listening to Bricky as well. Not saying that Bricky is boring, it's just that probably shouldn't try to watch long, lengthy videos and react to them after eating Meat Lover's Pizza, because the meat can imbue you with the itis. So don't feel bad. I kind of nodded off just like for a couple of seconds too until I caught myself, so you're fine. But we got Goldberg, and we find out that his shield is actually a homie from Big Mom, because apparently his dad went there on an expedition with some other giants to attempt and kill Big Mom. I just have so much lore stuff. I can't even see the bottom half of your message because of this stupid emoji on the chat list on my phone. I just have so much lore stuff to tell, and I just slept. It's fine. Like I said, it's fine. But Nash is fighting this monster, and his shield can also increase in size, and of course it doesn't like to be used as a shield, apparently. Then we have Sanji and Zoro teaming up to use Arme de Liar Assault, and just like he did to the dragon back in Punk Hazard, Zoro shoots forward and beheads this creature, which they then take to basically cook up. And this is when Goldberg explains that this the shield is a homie. Shield is a homie from back when his dad went on the expedition to vanquish Big Mom. And that's when, while they're walking away, while Goldberg is holding the body of this giant brontosaurus, Sanji and Zoro are holding the head and the neck. Can you motivate me to watch One Piece? I don't know what Kyushu is talking about. Oh, right. A lot has happened, e.g., a lot has happened in the world of One Piece. Where the anime is at right now is the Egghead arc, and we are way past that in the manga. We are now in the Elbaf arc. So there's a lot of things going on. So if you don't want to be spoiled on what's happening with One Piece, then I suggest you go and try and catch up with the anime, or at least catch up with the manga pages on your own time, and avoid listening to what I have to say, because I would hate to spoil you on something you would like to find out on your own. If you're okay with it, then I will continue. But I'm going to continue now. So, while Zoro and Sanji are carrying the head, they're talking about Zeus and saying that Zeus is now a servant to Nami, and and Goldberg is shocked to hear that, considering Zeus used to be one of the personal homies of Big Mom herself. And that's when we are cutting back to Loki, who was being tended to by Gerd. And in this particular panel, you can see just how massive Loki is, where Gerd is knelt down beside him, and she looks like a child in comparison to his size. That's how big Loki is. So, that's when Loki is explaining that it was the Holy Knights that basically assaulted him. Humans from the world government, you're saying that's who beat you this badly? That's what I'm saying. You must have given them reason to seek revenge when you were rampaging beyond the sea. Don't be stupid. If I'd gotten far enough to run into them when I was out there, I'd be the king of the world by now. And Luffy is listening to this. There's a guy that can turn into a jacket. Does that motivate? The Funk Brothers. I think it was Kelly Funk. Yeah, I think it was Kelly Funk who had the jacket fruit. But I don't know if that would be a significant motivator for someone to read One Piece. A person that can turn into a jacket and be worn by another individual? I don't know. A fruit that can make it... A person that can essentially manipulate space-time to shambles their way across different spaces? I want to read about that person. So I don't think the Funk Brothers bring as much appeal to One Piece as someone like Law. Okay, I put my volume to 0 so I couldn't hear you. Anyways, bye, guys. Gotcha. Hopefully he could tell what I said. I was saying, like, bye, EG. Hope you have a good day. All right, so Luffy's listening, going, nice from the world government. And then Goldberg shows up with a big old haul of food, and they basically cook the Brontosaurus, and they start feeding it to Loki. But Luffy, basically, even though the food is hot, slams it directly in Loki's face. Mind you, this is a burning hot piece of meat. This is a really big burning hot piece of meat. And Luffy just slams it directly onto Loki's face, kind of starting to burn him. And Loki's all like, are you trying to kill me? Hey, you're looking better already. Anyway, if you need to eat if you want to recover. And it shows Loki, eating. Oh, you saw my message? Have a nice day. Of course, of course. I can see you. I can see your message. I can see your messages. I can see everyone's messages. That's the reason why I have my phone up here so I can see chat right here. I don't have a second monitor, so I don't have one where there's chat on this side and then what I'm reading on that side. I haven't advanced my tech like that quite yet. But Loki's eating some food, and then he's trying to sit up. While he's trying to sit up, Loki almost chokes on some food, and in doing so, Luffy grabs a cup of hot soup. Mind you, this is a giant cup. So he's carrying this big old cup of hot soup, and Loki can see that it's steaming, and there's a crash as Luffy is causing more pain to Loki than he's actually being healed. Gerd sees this and just gives him the thumbs up because he's all like, if you're harming Loki, we're good. So then Sanji and Zoro speak up. What did this guy do to make all the giants hate him so much? I'm guessing he was lying when he made that promise to Luffy. And then Loki sits up and goes, where to find red hair now? Sorry, but I wasn't lying about that. We'll be the judge of that. Go on and tell us. Why should I tell you when you haven't upheld your end of the bargain and unlocked my last chain? I like doing the voice for Loki. It's probably not going to sound like this in the anime, but I like doing this voice for him. Why should I tell you when you haven't upheld your end of the bargain and unlocked my last chain? You really want to meet red hair that badly, eh? I suppose I understand how it feels to idolize a pirate you met when you were just a lad. And when he says this, Luffy goes, you make it sound like you feel the same way about someone. Yes, I did. And it pains me that I was only a boy at the time. Because it shows that Loki was speaking to an individual who visited Elbaf, saying, take me with you. And this person says, I didn't come here to meet a whelp like you. Stop making me repeat myself. And then Loki says, fight me then. And this person goes, what? And the next thing we see is an incredibly severely injured Loki laying on the ground. Mind you, this is a child. An incredibly injured Loki laying on the ground with a sword stabbed in him. And we have an individual, a very tall individual in the distance going, you didn't have to use a blade on a kid, with a very distinct piece of facial hair. And then the person next to him just says, shut up, Newgate, confirming that this person that Loki was referring to all these years ago was in fact Rox. Rox and Whitebeard showed up to Elbaf one day when Loki was a child. Loki wanted to join Rox's crew the same way Luffy wanted to join Shanks' crew. However, instead of, violently reprimanding the child, Shanks was the one who reprimanded Luffy, but it did it in like a playful way, saying like, you're too weak, we can't have you on our crew. But at least he didn't do any harm to Luffy because he cared for Luffy. Rox did the exact opposite. Oh, you want to fight me, huh? Fine. And he almost kills the guy. He almost kills the kid back then. And Loki, back in the present, says, I was born in the wrong era. Then we cut to Dory and Bragi on the Great Eric as they're basically contending with all of the sleeptids that are assaulting them right now, including Scopper Gabin, who is not wasting any time obliterating a couple of sleeptids of his own. And Gabin notes that there are more of them now. 3. A trio of abnormal voices. They can try to hide, but I still feel them. Signifying that Scopper Gabin is capable of sensing the Holy Knights, even though they're trying to hide their presence, but it doesn't work. Then it cuts to the firefighting team as they're trying to put out the fires. And it shows Saul has defeated the nightmare version of Fenrir, as the children are steadily making their way towards the fire that has been set on Branch 8, on Route 8. And we see the firefighters trying to put the fire out, but it's still raging as the children start to walk towards it. And then it cuts to Summers and Gunko, who are watching all of this go on. And in these 3 chapters, you really see the depravity of the depravity and the inhumanity of the Holy Knights as they're just enjoying these children potentially walking to their deaths, enjoying the anguish that the parents and the people of Elbaf are feeling when they find out, when they learn that children are being led to possibly to their deaths or to be kidnapped. They're just enjoying this, especially Somers. Somers is enjoying this more than anyone else. He considers this a game. This is a pastime for him to see the anguish of other individuals, be they human or giant or otherwise. He's enjoying this. Look at that, Gunko. The kids are about to burn to death. What happens? Will they wake up? And then Gunko says they'll wake up from the heat, wail and cry for their parents, and be consumed by flames and burned into bones, I assume. How about that? Now that's emotion. But before any of that can happen, we get the helmsman of the Straw Hat Crew, the greatest fishman to ever exist, the master of Gyujin Karate, and the all-around greatest fishman to ever exist. The most powerful, the greatest fishman to ever exist. Just an all-around awesome dude, Jimbei with Sea Cloud shoulder throw. Sea Cloud Ipponzioi! And takes the sea clouds that are also watery and proceeds to douse the entire branch in water, pretty much saving the children from burning to death in that instance. Mind you, Colin and the rest of the Straw Hats that are with him, they see this, and they see just Jimbei being awesome. So when that happens, the children, they're still walking forward, but at least they're out of the danger of burning to death. So Dory and Bragi are cheering, saying like, that was a close one. We believed in you. Well done, firefighters. Even though the firefighters know that they are not the ones who put all that water on there. They're not the ones who stopped the fire. Then we get Robin and Chopper, who goes, did you see that, Robin? Jimbei must be nearby. And everyone is cheering. Everyone is cheering for Jimbei. Until Gunko shows up, and she's just standing on Colin's mini svar, saying, so I suppose the school isn't the only place to find a perky child. And everyone is shocked to see Gunko there. And that's the end of chapter 1145. So, here, we have a member of the Holy Knights who is preparing to basically intercepting the Straw Hat Crew. Now, the thing that stood out to me the most in this chapter, and it may not have stood out to many other people, is the fact that Loki knew Rox. Back when Rox had his own crew. And mind you, this had to have been a significantly long time ago because the silhouette of Rox doesn't show him with the long dreads that we have seen, the long hair that we see of him, in the future. And this is clearly around the time when Whitebeard's mustache started to really grow in, but he was still very young at the time. This was many years ago, well before the God Valley incident. This was child Loki. And I can't remember how old Loki is, but I know he's older than the average person. Ripley is like, what, in her 60s? I think she's in her 60s, while Colin's in his 30s, and he's just a child. So this had to be a significant time ago for Rox to have interacted with Loki. That's the biggest thing that stood out to me. Not only that, but also the God Knights, the Holy Knights, were already making their way towards the Straw Hats to intercept them. I somehow have a feeling Loki's gonna join Blackbeard's crew. That's an interesting thought to have. Many people are saying like, oh, what if Loki joins up with, not joining up as in joining the Straw Hat Crew, because frankly, he's just too big to be on the Sunny period. But it would be something if Loki joins the crew who is seeking the same goals as Rox when you think about it. Because here's the thing. Rox knew a whole bunch of taboo information that the world government knew of, and they wanted to just basically wipe his entire crew's name from history, which they did. And he also amassed a crew that were not friends with each other, but they were there because of similar pursuits. the Blackbeard crew is a parallel of the Rocks crew when you think about it, because their goals are essentially kind of the same. Rocks wanted to rule over the world. The Blackbeard pirates want to dominate and rule over the world. Whereas the Straw Hat crew is a parallel of the Roger pirates. Roger just enjoyed living life with his crew, but did not really tolerate disrespect to his crew members, towards his crew members, and would gladly body entire nations for the sake of his own people. The Roger pirates and the Straw Hat pirates are parallels, the same way the Blackbeard pirates and the Rocks pirates are parallels. Because while the Rocks pirates had many powerful people on their crew, Kaido, Big Mom, Whitebeard, Shiryu of the Rain, Buckingham Stussy. No, wait, why did I say Shiryu of the Rain? I meant to say Shiki the Golden Lion. Why? Sorry, I was getting Shiki and Shiryu so confused. Please forgive me. Shiki the Golden Lion, all of these really big names. Even Gloriosa from the Kuja, she was on the Rocks Pirates as well. They were all on the crew not because they enjoyed each other's company, but simply because their interests align. So I would not be surprised if Loki chooses to team up with Blackbeard. However, the one thing that's keeping me from thinking that he could solidify on such a decision is the fact that he looks down on other humans. All other humans. And I highly doubt he would want to be a part of a crew where someone is the captain and he is deemed, lower than the captain, even though Blackbeard is considered an admiral of the Black Pirate of his own fleet now. I highly doubt Loki would give way to the position of Blackbeard. One, because he's a human, and two, because Loki believes himself to be better than every other human out there. So while the idea of Loki joining a crew whose whole ideology mirrors that of Rocks, I don't know if he would put that aside for the sake of humans. Because the crew is all human, even though they're weird, except for San Juan Wolf. San Juan Wolf is just a giant of a giant, but I don't think Loki would join a crew of humans at all. Simply because of the way he's behaved ever since we've been introduced to him in Elbaf. But that's just my personal opinion, though. But the chapter ends with Gunko right there in front of the other remaining Straw Hats. Brook, Jinbei, Nami, Usopp. And that's where 11:45 ends. Moving on to 11:46, we're actually making good time. This might not be as long as I thought it was going to be, but it's all good all the same. We begin this chapter with Gunko on the ship. Chapter 11:46, Motion in Stillness. So Gunko is standing there, and Brook is surprised to see Gunko there. Mind you, he's the only one that doesn't who doesn't audibly confirm that someone is there. He's the one that's just surprised to see her there in general. And Colin says, one of the human intruders who the castle guards couldn't handle. And Gunko gets insulted by this, saying, you dare call me a human? We are gods. And Usopp goes, gods? You sound like Eneru or the celestial dragons. And Nami goes, what would gods want with the children of Elbaf? And they start questioning Gunko, and then Gunko referring to Colin, says, hold your tongue, boy. We'd prefer a simpler method, but at that size, our options are limited. And it shows that while Ripley and Frankie, while in the midst of, Gunko giving this little monologue here, a villain monologue, if she's watched Incredibles, she'd know not to monologue as much. But Ripley and Frankie have apparently taken down one of the lightning sleep tids. One of the sleep tids, which is a nightmare of a children afraid of a lightning storm. Frankie uses Radical Beam and pretty much brought it down. With Ripley, carrying both Bonnie and Lilith as well. We'd prefer a simpler method, but at that size, our options are limited. So they'll just have to walk. We'll take them to the Holy Land via an appropriate route. And then Nami's all like, the Holy Land, Marie-Joie? And Jinbei goes, are you a celestial dragon then?
What? You mean those ugly, annoying... Wait, you don't look like the ones I'm thinking of.
And Brook doesn't say anything until he goes, I suspect it's something above that. The Holy Knights. Now, when I read this, the first thing that popped into my head is, How does Brook know of the Holy Knights? How does Brook know of the Holy Knights? Mind you, he's like 80 years old. So he's been around the world, both living and dead. But, well, mostly dead. He's just been on one spot, just stuck in Thriller Bark. But how does Brook know of the Holy Knights? Now, we know that he was part of the Rumbar Pirates, and as far as my history with Brook goes, the last thing I remember was he was part of... Matter of fact, let me pull this up. Brook. One Piece. Let me pull this up. Let me pull up the wiki. Let's see. History. Give me his history. Before he became part of the Rumbar Pirates. Pressing the wrong thing. Let's see. Not much is known of Brook's past before he joined the Rumbar Pirates. What is known is that Brook was born 90 years ago. My bad, he's not 80, he's 90. He's almost 100 years old! What is known is that Brook was born 90 years ago and was attending some form of education in his former years. He would soon go on to become the leader of a battle convoy in a certain kingdom, where he learned his fencing and many of his attacks received their names. These nicknames of his fencing style were given to him by his previous crew. At some point, Brook would learn of the existence of the God's Knights, of the Holy Knights. So, at some point in Brook's past, he learned about the Holy Knights, but I'm also curious. I am also curious about what Brook did 90 years ago, because that's a significant amount of time, all right? That is older than Vegapunk. Matter of fact, let's look up the age of Vegapunk. Hold on, how old is he? Yeah, that is way older than Vegapunk, because when Vegapunk was killed, he was only 65. He was only 65. Vegapunk was only 65. So Brook predates the smartest man in the world and pretty much a vast majority of all other characters in the series, save for Giants and the Gorosei and possibly the Holy Knights as well. Brook has been around for a long time. The only person he is not older than is Dr. Kureha, who's like 120, I think. He's probably just some king or queen's guardian like Pell and the Anubis guy to Vivi, and that could very well be the case. However, he was part of a battle convoy for a certain kingdom, but it's the certain kingdom that I'm kind of curious about. But long story short, let's get back on the topic here. Brook is well aware of the Holy Knights, which is also something that makes me question just how much he got around when he was alive, due to the fact that the Holy Knights, it's not a common thing. You got to be high up on the chain of command for the world government and high up in the chain of command for the revolutionaries to even know about the Holy Knights. So how is it that Brook knows of them? That's what I'm curious about. I'm actually really curious about Brook's past. What type of person was he back then? What kingdom was he a part of? Where did he learn his fencing skills? How did he get to be the person that he is today? You know, before he started the Rumbar Pirates. I guess it's common for nobles. That could be assumed. However, maybe it's not as common as one might think, because the Holy Knights are considered like the police of celestial dragons. They are the ones who dole out punishment for those who break their laws, as is the case with Don Quixote Miasgard, where he was the literal first celestial dragon to die. And we actually see his crucifixion, his execution. We see him propped up for all to see. So my thinking, and this is just me, but I think the Holy Knights are not exactly secretive, but it's really just since the Holy Knights never really go down to like the surface, their presence is probably only known to those who see them on the regular. Who knows how many times the Holy Knights have actually gone down to the human world, or the lower world as they would see it. But I'm just curious as to how much does Brook know? Because he may seem like a goofball at times, but when it's serious, it makes you wonder just what his life was like. But that's just me. It makes you wonder what it was like. So Brook goes, I suspected something above that. The Holy Knights.
The very same. Does that mean you're capturing all those kids to turn them into slaves?
And Gunko starts using her arrow against Usopp, and he immediately notices.
Ah! Hey! What's this arrow doing?
You'll do no— and then Nami screams,
You'll do no such thing, Zeus!
Did you call for me, Nami?
Ah! Why does it keep chasing me? Get off!
And while he's running from it, Nami uses a brand new attack called Thunder Shark Tempo, which essentially turns Zeus into a shark-shaped cloud that is just brimming with lightning. And she tries to use it against Gunko, but Gunko basically uses her arrow powers to forcibly redirect Zeus and send him shooting towards Nami. Now, originally when I read this, I thought Nami got electrocuted by her own attack, which would have been the first time that ever happened. But it only turns out that Brook pretty much took the hit himself. And seeing as how he doesn't have anything to burn off of his body, save for his bones getting electrocuted, he was pretty much fine. But, Gunko then reveals, one day the world as we know it will cease to exist, or so we thought. But a small number of humans realized it and warned the world of the danger, referring to Professor Clover, sorry my nose is itchy, referring to Professor Clover, Nico Robin's mom Olvia, and Dr. Vegapunk himself. Biggest thing about Vegapunk is him revealing that the world was going to sink. It was going to be completely engulfed in water one day, and that is going to happen. It is going to happen. It is an inevitability. So the scholars of Ohara knew, Olvia knew, and of course Vegapunk knew, and they warned people about it. Let me see. So they're like inquisitors, only deal with corrupted nobles, not to deal with problems of the world. Exactly. If you want to give them like a little bit of a parallel, the Holy Knights of One Piece are akin to the Imperium Inquisition, the Inquisitorius of Warhammer, where they dole out punishment to nobles and only deal with celestial dragon matters. It's not that they seek out heresy, but they are the ones that get called upon to immediately quell it and deal with it. I mean, we saw that Garling was the one who doled out the punishment for Miasgard back then. All because Miasgard wanted to protect a fishman. And you can also see the prejudice and racism of the world nobles when they referred to the fishman as just scum, or disgusting subhuman scum and subhuman filth. So you can see their xenophobia with Garling. And it's and pretty much the entire culture of celestial dragons is pretty much built on racism and xenophobia, because celestial dragons only view their own people as a superior race. They view anyone beneath them, anyone that isn't born a celestial dragon, or even remotely affiliated with a celestial dragon. If you're not a celestial dragon born and bred, then you are less than nothing. From the most prestige, you could be a king and rule over an entire nation, and none of that matters. None of that matters in the face of a celestial dragon. Which is so incredibly, I mean, obviously it's wrong, but it just shows you that their entire culture is built on that and maintaining that ideology. Which is why the Gorosei fight so hard in order to make sure no one knows the true history of the world, eliminate anyone who tries to learn the history of the world, and also eliminate any way for the world to progress outside of their control. Keep everyone under thumb, for we are the gods of this world, and therefore we can allow anyone to get even remotely close to us. We will destroy entire nations, as is the case of Lelusia, for those who rebel. That's the world government. We will, the same way the Warhammer world will destroy entire planets if need be, and raze it to the ground if it is beyond what they can quell with troops. They're very capable of just straight up destroying planets if they wanted to. Cleansing an entire planet of life if need be. So, Gunko says, the one day the world as we know it will cease to exist, or so we thought. But a small number of humans realized it and warned the world of the danger. And Usopp, not taking any more of this, takes aim at Gunko and immediately hits Gunko with his pop greens, only to show that Gunko's entire upper body has been completely and totally obliterated. I wonder how they're going to censor this in the anime, because her upper torso is just gone. It is not engulfed in smoke here. It is completely and utterly gone. Until, in this chapter, we find out that not only are the Gorosei immortal, but the Holy Knights are immortal as well, as Gunko immediately starts regenerating from that. And she regenerates completely, and now it is unstoppable. No one can stop it. And Usopp, being assaulted by the arrow again, he starts running, and Usopp immediately can tell that,
I had a feeling these arrows are pointing towards the target of her attacks.
And then both Brook and Jinbei get ready to, defend themselves from Gunko, and we get back to the Great Eric Svar. And Gunko says the countdown has begun. A vast war will ensue and drag the entire world into it. And which side the giants pledge their allegiance to will have a profound effect on the outcome of the war. So that's the whole reason why the Holy Knights are here, because a war is coming to the world of One Piece. A world war where everyone will be dragged into it. No one will be exempt. And whoever the giants side with will wind up helping and will have a significant effect on the outcome of the war. That's the reason why these Holy Knights are kidnapping all of these children, to force the giants to join their side so that they can have a fighting chance over the war that is coming. It's inevitable. There's no way to avoid it. The big world war that Kaido himself wanted when he, face planted 10,000 feet up into the ground right in front of Kid, Hawkins, and Scratchman in front of Apu, when he was telling Joker, get ready I hope you're ready, let's start the world's greatest war. They'll start a war, the biggest war the world has never seen. The very war that Kaido has always wanted is going to start without him. The war so it began without me. The biggest war that Kaido has always wanted is going to start in One Piece. And the outcome of that war, probably, if you want me to be honest with you, the war that's about to come to One Piece is probably going to be the war that will be near the end of the story. Because once the war is over, that's when the only thing we'll have left after this big massive war happens is, getting to Laugh Tale itself and finally getting the One Piece. Because the war is going to happen first. Sure, there's going to be a war over the throne for the King of the Pirates, but what if it's the same thing? What if this giant world war that's about to happen will also incorporate the war for the throne for King of the Pirates? That's just something I thought of. But a vast war will ensue and drag the entire world into it, and which side the giants pledge their allegiance to will have a profound effect on the outcome of the war. And Nami screaming like,
the world at war? That would never happen.
So you're trying to seize control of Elbaf in preparation for it? By taking children as hostages? What cheap cowardice. And then it shows Gunko speeding towards them going, I perform my duty as commanded, but it could all be for nothing. The lives of a few children might as well be trash to me. I do not understand the concept of hostages. Because the brainwashing of celestial dragons is that they view humanity as nothing more than insects. And who takes hostages of bugs? Who considers it immoral to squash a bug? Who considers it inhumane to crush filth under heel? That sort of brainwashing has been incredibly prevalent for the celestial dragons. So they don't even look at they don't understand the concept of hostages, because in order to understand the concept of hostage, you would have to look at an individual as a bargaining tool. But literally, all they see is just objects to use. You comprehend the value of this target, maybe sometimes on a personal level, but the celestial dragons as a whole, concepts that require morality, they have no idea what it is, because whatever they do it because they can, regardless of the moral standing that it has with other people, how it looks to other people, and how evil it is. And it tends to be evil pretty much 99% of the time. We can say 100% now, because that 1%, that was different, actually, yeah, that 1% that was different was Don Quixote Homing and Don Quixote Miasgard. Them both having the ideology of, like, we want to live amongst the people, because we're people too. They're the 1% that did not suffer permanent brain damage from the brainwashing of celestial dragons. Everyone else, they're beyond saving. Charlos, Chalria, all of them. They're all gone. I perform my duty as commanded, but it could all be for nothing. The lives of a few children might as well be trash to me. I do not understand the concept of hostages. And everyone's just confused at her whole, just how she refers to everything. But Kowloon, while this is happening, Kowloon tries to get a sword, but Gunko immediately puts an arrow around his neck and yanks him off the ship, starting to, subtly strangle him, but also keep him alive. Then we get Jinbei with Gosen Maigara Seiken, and he goes to use it, and then we have Brook preparing to use Gavotte Bundavan, and Gunko using a move called Aloe, or like aloe vera. She sweeps underneath their attacks and uses arrows to not only dodge them and slide past them, but also cause their attacks to hit each other. Brook winds up stabbing Jinbei in the shoulder, and Jinbei winds up hitting Brook and knocking his head completely off his shoulders. Mind you, this doesn't do anything to Brook, but it is an inconvenience. And then Nami, she sees the arrowhead directly in front of her as Gunko shows up and kicks Nami directly in the face. And mind you, we don't really see Nami get injured to this degree, but this is the first time we see in a long time Nami getting hurt this bad by someone. And then Usopp goes to try and hit Gunko, but she uses her arrows to weave out of the way and flip over. She literally flips over and spins around, and an arrow points directly towards Usopp's face, with Gunko landing a solid knee directly into his jaw, pretty much sending everybody off of the ship, plummeting down to the sea clouds below. And then we get Summers and Killingham going, "How's it looking? You all set up, Killingham? The means of communication are so inadequate in Elbaf." "No kidding, but it seems like every village and important facility has its own transmission tool." And it shows that Killingham was actually fighting, back at the school, Principal Tusk, and in the process broke off one of Principal Tusk's tusks, and after body slamming this man directly into the ground. What's going on, Zakaruga? Hey Q, loving the God's Knights. These guys are ruthless. We still got 5 more to go. Can't wait for the other reveals in the future. Gunko's arrow ability has shown a lot in this arc, so versatile. It's incredibly versatile. 1, it pretty much makes up her clothes. It pretty much makes up her clothes. 2, it can be used as a rapid form of transportation, not only through being able to create a bird out of it, but also but also being able to slide across these arrows as like a rapid conveyor belt. Two, it can be used to restrain individuals. Three, it can be used to force individuals to move in ways that they normally wouldn't, even against their will, and we haven't seen anyone wrest control from it either. And it can also be used to create constructs as well. The closest we can think of is that her ability is the closest to a Green Lantern's ring's ability to create constructs. Because she can effectively create anything she wants. Arrows that can jab into people, arrows that can enhance her attacks, arrows that can be used to create constructs to allow her to grow to a larger size where she can use these constructs to harm someone as big as Loki. Arrows that can be used as a means of transportation in both for flight for long distance or quickly moving in a direction for short range. It's been shown to be incredibly versatile for it to be a paramecia. And this is just Gunko's ability. And I believe we still haven't seen all that she can do with it as well. Because we're just now getting into Gunko using this to a much higher degree outside of Loki. Good comparison? Yes. When you think about it, her being able to make anything that she can wear and also wield, like a full-on gauntlet and a giant boot, that also doesn't incur any weight towards her so she can move them like they're normal. Yeah, the closest I can think of is literally a Green Lantern's ring. Where it's not just the will that she can, it's not her will that wills these things into existence when she uses it, but for a Green Lantern, it is the willpower of an individual that powers a Green Lantern's ring construct. But for Gunko, I'm going to call it the will to enslave or the will to dominate. That's the reason why she's able to do everything she has. I know that's not a real thing, but that's just me throwing that out there as a comparison. But everyone gets knocked off of Colin Sfar as Killingham has basically subdued everyone, including Anji. And she apparently can't move. And Killingham goes, "Yes, it's because your body has been slumberized." So now we see another aspect of Killingham's abilities. One, he can induce people to go to sleep. And after giving them a suggestion before he sends them to sleep, he can take that item that he makes them envision and take it out from food to other objects, including literal nightmares that have physical and tangible constitution in the world. But we also learn that he's capable of causing a person's body to become groggy. Essentially, you know how you wake up in the morning? Maybe you had a very good sleep, and you wake up, your body is still trying to adapt. It's still trying to get used to getting up. Apparently, Killingham is capable of inducing that sensation in a person's body so that their body is sleepy and tired, so you can't even move all that much. She's also the only person that really hasn't been injured at this time. She's just been incapacitated through slumberization, as Killingham puts it. It's this big one, right? I've never heard of a transponder pillbug. Try talking through the transponder snail, Somers. This should send it all across Elbaf. All right, I'll give it a shot. Just give me a minute first, Killingham. He's almost down. And it shows Somers is currently beating up on Saul, who also has Robin and Chopper hiding in his hair. Because Somers has surrounded Saul with a sea of thorns and is also using his own weapon somehow and has infused it to make it into this giant spiked Kanabo of his own. This is the guy who should have died at Ohara. But he's also, making fun of Saul while Saul is telling Robin and Chopper, "You gotta help rescue the children for me. You gotta." And that's when Saul collapses, and Saul collapses directly onto these thorns, these massive vines that Somers has created. He just falls face first into it. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been stuck before by a cactus. I didn't get stuck all over my hand, but I have touched one of the spikes, and it was incredibly painful. It was like it was needle. It was a needle. Now imagine for a second, or maybe even think of thorns on a rose stem. Like, say for instance, you get your mother a bouquet of roses for Mother's Day, and some of the roses may not have all of their thorns completely snapped off. Well, you touch one of them the wrong way, and you'll wind up drawing some blood just from touching that thing. Now imagine a mass of these surrounding you, and you having already been beaten bloodied by an individual who's already using a spiked mace to beat you up. You lose consciousness, and then you fall face first into these spikes. See, this is the reason why, for those of us who can only take so much pain here in the real world, many of us would not survive. Our pain tolerance would have an issue if we were to go from here into the world of One Piece, simply because people get hurt doing some things that would just completely drive people insane. Water. Give me a sec, water. But yeah, Saul falls face first into these thorns, much to Robin's distress, because you know what Saul means to Robin. So hearing him scream out in pain after falling into these spikes, she can't help it. She can't help it. But then we get Somers going, schools, libraries, what kind of peace loving nonsense is this? You people are warriors. You're going to use the vicious, violent power that once terrified the world in service to us as mercenaries. Isn't that right, King Harold? And then stupid Harold had to go and screw it all up. So now we see what they intend to do with the giants. They intend to turn the giants into mercenaries for them to use however they choose. So imagine an entire nation of giant beings under your control. It is the closest to the rumbling that One Piece can get. And that's the end of chapter 1146. Onwards to 1147, which was the most recent chapter before we started to go on break. Chapter 1147, What We're Afraid Of. And we get back, and we go back in time to when Saul was telling Robin and Chopper to hide in his hair. And Saul says, stay hidden, Robin and Chopper. I've seen him before. He's a holy knight. They're immortal. You can't beat them. Hide and wait for your chance to save the kids. And it cut back to Saul, who's laying face first in this mass of thorns that Somers has created. I guess that means there were 2 survivors of Ohara. The Navy sure did a sloppy job. But we see a slight rustle inside of Saul's hair, and Somers almost notices before Gunko shows up, with the rest of the Straw Hats restrained. So not only did all of the Straw Hats on that ship with Colin get knocked off, but Gunko went after them and restrained them and brought them right there. They're all being restrained by her arrow powers. So you can tell that this is a very strong restrictive power due to the fact of Jinbei, who is pretty much the strongest person physically amongst this group, and he can't even break from it. So if a fishman of Jinbei's caliber can't even break through Gunko's arrows, then that means that they're insanely strong. It remains to be seen, because the last time we seen someone be restrained by something, it was Doflamingo's strings that we saw. And Luffy was capable of breaking those as soon as he started using Gear 4. So I wonder how strong prehensile tension-wise these arrows are for Gunko. Let me see here. Yeah, 5 more minutes, the most dangerous quote. It is the absolute most dangerous quote. So is laying down and watching something and thinking you're going to be able to get up. That's dangerous too. Love that Somers had the same reaction as Usopp and Luffy. Elbaf, no fighting schools, peace. Peace, what is this, Giants? Oh, that's the old Elbaf. We don't do that anymore. Yeah. He had the same reaction as Usopp and Luffy. They're all like, hey, aren't you warriors? No, we're a peace-loving country now. What? Somers had the same thing. Yeah, you're right. But we get Somers talking to Gunko, going, "Gunko, you saw the Straw Hat. You caught the Straw Hat crew. Then you gonna take them with us?" And Killingham says, "Don't be stupid, Somers. Are you trying to make Straw Hat Luffy furious? Let's just fulfill the mission and go home." Because they don't want to rile up the fury of an emperor. And given Luffy's capabilities, I don't know if they have what it takes to, fully beat him. Mind you, Luffy isn't currently here. If he heard his crew was being restrained by the Holy Knights, oh, he throwing hands. But
Poor Saul's been tormented and we let Colin get kidnapped. How could you let this happen, Jinbei?
Stop shouting, I'm trying to come up with a plan. What are these powers anyhow?
That chick is scary. I thought I was gonna die.
I feel like there's something about that woman. However, maybe it's just my imagination. And then, all of a sudden, Gunko creates a saber out of her own power. Mind you, she doesn't have a weapon. She is the weapon. And she uses her arrow powers to create a saber and points it directly at Brook.
Yeah, it's her! The zombie girl!
And then Gunko steps on Brook's face, saying,
"Listen up, you. I want you to write songs for me for the rest of your life. You're going to be my slave."
And this leads into one of the coldest lines from Brook since his cold line to Big Mom, way back when he was in her vault.
What? Does she know about Brook's music? A celestial dragon who's a fan of Soul King?
Sounds like a nightmare of a fan. Knock it off, Gunko. I don't want to fight with one of the four emperors either. Let's just do our job and go. And then Brook sits up and goes, "I'm quite sorry, young lady, but from the day that Captain Straw Hat Luffy bestowed me my second life, I have been dedicated to no one but him."
What if I said I would kill you?
"I would rather die than live without honor."
Look out, Brook!
And then Gunko uses her powers to kick Brook away, and then, after tugging on her heart because that apparently emotionally bothered her, she starts just beating up and abusing Brook. Why Nami violated Jinbei like that? Because Nami knows that she's not capable of doing anything on par with any strong member of the Straw Hat crew. So of course she's got to blame it on the strongest person that's around them physically.
Why didn't you do anything to stop it, Jinbei?
Why didn't you? You tried and you failed. I tried and I failed. We all failed. You're in the same boat as me. Well, technically, not anymore. Yo ho ho. But Gunko starts beating up on Brook because of his response. And I have to say, him saying I would rather die than live without honor, cold line. I would rather die than live without honor. I would rather die than serve someone else after pledging my life to Straw Hat Luffy, who gave me a second chance, who gave me back my shadow, who allowed me to find out that Laboon was fine and still waiting for me, who allowed me to see the sun again without having a threat to my body, who freed me from Thriller Bark. So yeah, that's a cold line from Brook, and I love it. But Usopp is screaming, "Brock!" Are we good now, Killingham? Yeah, go ahead. And this is when Saint Somers starts chiming in and starts going on this long monologue to all the giants. Check. Can you hear me, Elbaf? I'll do the voices for him this time. I normally don't do it, but I do it this time because I just enjoy it that much. Come in, warriors of Elbaf. And everyone is listening. I'm sure you're all busy scrambling to deal with the strange events unfolding around you. That was our doing. I am a dagger sent straight from sacred Marie-Joie. I am Somers of the Holy Knights. Marie-Joie? So he's from the world government? Why would they do this? And the crewmates of the giant pirates, they come in and everyone's listening in. Dory and Bragi are both listening in. And then we're cutting to the craftsman village on the southeast Sun World. Then we're cutting to the huntsman village on the northwest of Elbaf. As I'm sure you've realized all over Elbaf, we have taken 10 of your children as hostages. And in this panel, we see Somers being also escorted by a lot of other sleeptids that are still out there right now. And he's also somehow riding on one of his own vines, which has taken on this serpentine appearance, which means that he can create creatures out of his thorns to ride on. He's just riding on the top of this creature. We have taken 10 of your children as hostages. On top of that, we have reduced an orange-bearded man to a bloody mess for the crime of pursuing us from the school in an attempt to free the children. And that's when Anji manages to sit up just a little bit and goes,
Mr. Soul?
in other words, while you blithely assumed that someone else was going to do the rescuing for you, the children have continued to march toward the goal.
Soul, no!
And then Killingham goes, the game's only getting started. It's just a shame we can't use video. Can you name all the children who marched out of here?
Of course.
Then let's let their parents know that it's time for the twerps to wake from their dream. And then the children start to realize that, hey, they're waking up. They're waking up. But they're still being forced to walk in a direction, and we see that Colin has been added to the ranks as well. And some of the kids are crying, trying to find out what's going on. But Colin says,
Stop whining, I'm here. And unlike your crybaby weaklings, I'm a warrior.
And then some sleeptids show up, very large sleeptids show up, and they scare all of the children, including Colin. Then we cut back to the Great Eric, where we get more sleeptids that are assaulting the ship, and a lot of them are the wives and mothers of giants on Elbaf already. To the point where some of them can't even fight they can't even fight them because it reminds them too much of their wives. I don't know. It's some sort of woman monster. Looks looks like my wife. Watch out, she's gonna beat you over the head. That other one looks like my wife. Huh? Wait, these monsters all came from the children's worst fears, right? And your wife is Bent's mom. That's right. So Bent was asked to imagine what he was afraid of, and the answer was, Mommy! Wait, what? That's our worst fear too! So, all these giants that are assaulting the Great Eric, some of them happen to be nightmare versions of wives and mothers of giants across Elbaf. Even Oimo, well, actually, Kashi got tossed to the side. Kashi got tossed.
Yeah! We can't fight! Our morale is getting hammered!
Even Dory and Bragi are just taken aback by the fact that nightmare versions of giant wives are pretty much assaulting them right now. And their moms are scary? Yes, they can be. Me, even at 33 years of age, I do not want to incur the wrath of my mother. 'Cause it is a feeling and fate unlike any other. That's the reason why Kyushu tends to be a good boy. But as that happens, the sleeptids are assaulting the oars and breaking the ship, causing the Great Eric to plummet into the trees down below. And Summer sees this and he starts laughing. The giant pirate ship has crashed. So much for their bluster. Some of those sleeptids were real beasts. The kids' chances of rescue are dwindling by the minute. Now, Beard here, Jarl, warrior of legend, it's time for us to talk. You mean Dory and Broggy are down? With no king on the throne, you're the boss around here. And it cuts to Ripley, who is still there with Lilith, Bonnie, and Frankie, as they see the Great Eric. They manage to get there. Our goal here is quite simple. To make you giants our slaves in battle. The next step is to find out how effective these kids will be as hostages. I bet you're all wondering whose kids our 10 hostages are, huh? So he doesn't even waste any time. He doesn't mince words. He says, we are here to make you our slaves in battle. Because every celestial dragon lacks a form of tact. Since they see themselves as gods, they don't need to dance around words to try and, appeal to people's feelings or maybe not rub people the wrong way because they frankly don't care what people think because they see themselves as gods. And therefore, how people feel is irrelevant. So, no chill whatsoever saying to make you giants our slaves in battle. Not even mercenaries. Just straight up slaves. I bet you're all wondering whose kids our 10 hostages are, huh? And then it cuts to Anji, who names them all.
These are the names of the children who were kidnapped. First up, Ylva,
who turns out to be the great-granddaughter of Chief Jarl.
Next, Skaldi, Olav, Karin, Mag, Ronja, Bent, Johanna, Bjorn. That makes 9, but just now, hoping to save his friends, a little warrior named Colin...
Oh, wait.
A little warrior named Colin showed up to join the group, so that makes 10.
And since Ripley managed to get to the Great Eric, Scopper Gabin is there as well. And they both hear that their son has been, forced into this group as well.
What? Colin?
Did you hear that, Ripley? Our son's a hero.
Now's not the time for...
And then Somers chimes in going, and now our commands. Heed them closely, Elbaf. Your school is completely useless in war, and your library is packed full of pointless records of the past. Meaning any information that has to deal with the Void Century, or anything that could condemn or bring down the image or just flat out destroy the world government in general. And your library is packed full of pointless records of the past. You will burn them down now, right now, and swear fealty to us. If you do not, we will eliminate the brats, one at a time. And all of the giant pirates are just getting mad and upset that the lives of these children are being threatened. What are they talking about? We know where the children are. Let's go save them. I want to smash these guys. You have to make the call, Chief Jarl. Me? And then Anji goes,
No, wait, please, it's too cruel. The school is the symbol of Elbaf's current state of peace, and the library is full of Elbaf's ancient history, as well as knowledge of the world, saved through the sacrifice of Ohara's scholars. It's a fortune that belongs to more than just Elbaf. And Somers, just exasperated that someone's trying to argue with him, goes, calm down, lady. And then Robin, who we don't see her face, but we just see shadows over it, Chopper goes, No, Robin, you can't! And then Ripley goes, Please, Mr. Ya! You got it! And then Scopper Gabin immediately takes off. He's like kicking up dust running. Because we have Robin and Scopper Gabin who are already getting ready to throw hands with the Holy Knights. And they both say at the end of this chapter, I won't let them do this. So now, ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is a situation where Demon Child Nico Robin, one of the few scholars of Ohara, is preparing to fight the Holy Knights, and the left hand of the Pirate King, Scopper Gabin himself, is also preparing to fight these Holy Knights to rescue his son. This is where we're at in the world of One Piece at the current moment, and this is where we've gone on break, meaning that the next Sunday that's coming up, we don't get a chapter. So it should be interesting to see what Robin does. Will we see a return of Demonio Fleur? Will we see a return of Gigante Fleur? Jacuzzi Clutch? Or maybe a new attack in general? Will we see Scopper Gabin going all out in order to rescue his son? Will there be a moment where we can actually see Gunko's arrows being dissipated by an equally or more powerful force against it? There's a lot of things to keep in mind concerning this situation with Scopper Gabin and Robin preparing to fight. And you can tell Robin's ready to fight because she has her hands up. She has her hands up. She's preparing. When she got her hands up, you better put your weapons down. Because now Robin... Ooh! And here's the thing. We really haven't seen Robin do too much with her powers as far as on the lengths and degree of when she was fighting Black Maria back in Wano. That's when we saw Gigante Fleur. That's when we saw Demonio Fleur. And then Jacuzzi Clutch.
But we haven't seen her go all out in terms of fighting because she hasn't had an appropriate opponent. Now we have proper opponents for her to use her powers against. And not only that, but we have pretty much the third strongest member of the Roger Pirates preparing to help rescue the children. So it should be interesting. But overall, with these chapters of One Piece that we've been getting, can I just make note of the fact that the pacing has actually been quite nice? The pacing doesn't feel like they're rushing too quickly, nor does it feel like they're dragging things out. However, the chapter we get back to after we're done with break, I honestly feel we are not going to pick up again with Robin preparing to face off against a member of the Holy Knights or trying to rescue the kids. I feel like we're going to cut away from them and get back to Zoro, Sanji, Luffy, Loki, and the rest of the new giant pirates with Harudin. That's what I feel is going to happen. That's what I feel. I feel like we're going to cut away from all the insanity that's happening with Robin and company and moving right back to Luffy because we haven't really seen much of him. That's what I feel. But there's still a lot of things to work through in order to ensure that the books of Ohara don't get destroyed. Because the world government tried to destroy them the first time with the Buster Call of Ohara, and they failed because Ohara threw it all in the water and the giants preserved them. Now we're in a situation where those very same books are being threatened once again to ensure that their information doesn't become known to the world. And I feel like we're still gonna have some obstacles to get through. Because one, we got Somers, who has the thorn fruit. Then we have Gunko, who's there with Somers. Well, actually, no, Somers was leaving, so Gunko is with them. Wait a minute, hold on. Wait a minute. No, okay, Somers left. Gunko stayed behind near the mass of thorns. Oh, wait a minute, never mind. The rest of the Straw Hats are close to each other. Because Somers is leaving, but Gunko's not going with him, but Somers is moving away from Saul. Meaning that Gunko brought Jinbei, Usopp, Brook, and Nami closer to Robin and Chopper. So the rest of the Straw Hats are actually closer. The only members who are missing are Zoro and Sanji. Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy. They're the only ones who are missing from the group. Everyone else is actually relatively close to each other now. They're like in their immediate vicinity. I didn't notice that before. But the question is, who's going to go up against Killingham? Because Killingham is staying behind in the school. And mind you, I highly doubt he's going to start to try and set fire to the library. Also, we need to make note of the fact that we also have that owl in the library as well. Though it has a devil fruit to enlarge inorganic objects, who knows what other abilities it has to defend the library from anyone trying to assault it. Remember, I think the owl's name was Biblo. Yeah, the owl Biblo is in that library as well. So there's still a couple of things we need to resolve concerning, preserving the library of Ohara and Robin being able to read the information of her people. So Killingham is definitely going to be an obstacle due to him being able to slumberize a person's body and make them sleepy physically so that they really can't move. Also, being able to induce sleep into people and take whatever they're thinking out of their heads and use it against them in terms of nightmares that it's been shown to be very capable. But we also got Somers with his ability to create thorns, not only around himself and around other people, but apparently also imbue his weapon with it as well. And then we have Gunko, who we've seen whose arrows are quite durable, are incredibly versatile. So now we have 3 Holy Knights that have to be contended with. And not only all of that, all of these capabilities of the Holy Knights, but also the fact that they can't die, which means that whatever is done to them to keep them from winning, it is going to be a long-winded battle simply because they can't physically be killed. Usopp showed this, and this is actually the first time we see a Holy Knight be, subjected to any sort of injury in any way. We see that Gunko had her entire upper torso completely obliterated because of Usopp. Also, Usopp, what type of pop green is that for it to be capable of blowing up an entire body of a human being? All right, you're just carrying those things in your pocket all the time, but we see that even damage does nothing to them because they're immortal and they regenerate instantly. So now the question is how all of this is going to be resolved. Overall, we had some very good chapters in April, but I am curious on how they're going to stop, if not delay, these incredibly powerful individuals who physically cannot die or be permanently injured. And the only time we've seen someone with immortality get injured permanently was Imusama basically ripping the immortality off of Jay Garcia. And all those years caught up to him and basically reduced him to a skeleton in an instant. Someone should explain that to Nami. Jinbei could do big damage, but that regen ability is broken. Yeah, it is. We've discussed this. We've discussed this when we first saw pretty much innate instantaneous regeneration. The moment we saw Garcia get back up and he regenerated himself after Kuma punched him back in Egghead. The ability to regenerate your body instantaneously, even when your head is gone, and you just regenerate like it's nothing. Let's just speak on how scary an ability like that actually is. Being able to regenerate your body from any damage. Imagine a Logia. For example, imagine if Kuzan was blessed with immortality from Imusama or the Gorosei. Then he never would have lost his leg and he never would have had those permanent scars on his body from Akainu during their battle to decide for Fleet Admiral. It would have been OP, yes, but regeneration is not something that is readily available to people who don't have Logia powers. And mind you, when it comes to Logias, they can still be harmed to the point where even their Logia abilities won't just regenerate their missing parts. Because if their regular bodies get harmed, that's gone. As the case with Kuzan, who had to create an ice prosthetic of his left leg. It was just ice now. Him being a Logia where he could reform his body at any time pretty much stops to where his actual physical body ends. So imagine being able to regenerate from any damage that could essentially kill you. We've seen Jay Garcia get stabbed in the chest, I think stabbed in the throat. We saw his whole head get obliterated. We saw Luffy literally punch holes within his head. We saw all manner of damage. We saw Ethan Baron literally have half of his face blown up by Atlas when Atlas sacrificed herself. And they all regenerated instantaneously from it. Being able to regenerate and never die is the most overpowered ability in all of One Piece. More overpowered than the Ope Ope no Mi, more overpowered than a Goro Goro no Mi, more overpowered than Luffy's Hito Hito no Mi Model Nika. Being able to regenerate from any damage done to you instantly. That's overpowered. That's broken. And you mean to tell me that all of the Holy Knights have this? All of them. So now the question is, how do you fight something like that? Because Luffy was using, last time I checked, when Haki has been used against these individuals. Kuma punched Garcia in the face with a Haki-imbued punch, and he still regenerated. So apparently, Haki is not going to be something that'll basically transcend the damage for regeneration. How do you fight something? How do you fight someone who can regenerate their body at all times? Do you just reduce the body to basically nothing? Because it's... How? How do you fight someone like that? That's all I'm wondering. How is anyone going to contend with any one of these Holy Knights if they can't die and they can't sustain damage? There has to be a trick to it somehow. Because you can't just have immortal people and no one can defeat them. You can't. There's got to be some sort of trick to it. There has to be. But that's just me thinking. But I honestly feel like we're probably going to cut back to Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji back with the rest of the new giant pirates down below for the next chapter. Because I don't know if Oda's going to just continue to give us more Robin going up against a Holy Knight and preparing the fight in order to protect the school and library. I don't know if Oda's going to give us that for the next chapter. I honestly feel he's going to save that for the chapter after next. Question. Would you say the God Knights are Yonko level or Admiral level, or maybe on par with Katakuri, Shamrock, does not count? Well, considering they said they don't want to get into a fight with an Emperor, I'd say they are not Yonko level. They don't actively want to get in a fight with a Yonko. Which speaks volumes considering they're immortal, yet they still don't want to get caught up in a fight with an Emperor. So think about that for a sec. They know they're immortal, they can regenerate from anything, but they said they don't want to get caught up in a fight with an Emperor. That's that Majin Buu regeneration, pretty much. Hi, Dragon. Hello. Good to see you. Hope your day has been well. Also, Zakaruga, I hope your day has been well as well. So it's interesting how they don't want to tussle with Luffy, despite the fact that Luffy has already had a hard time, trying to bring down and even beat members of the Godosei, because even he knows that he can't beat them because they can't actually die. So it's interesting that they would say they don't want to tussle with an Emperor. Perhaps they're saying that because it'll probably waste too much time and they need to get their job done, or because they believe that Luffy is strong enough to actually pose a threat to them. So who can say? But overall, as I bring this to a close, I told you it wasn't going to be too long. As I bring this to a close, I would have to say the Holy Knights are probably Admiral level, I would say. But that's subjective, because people will say, no, they're not Admiral level, because Kizaru can do this, and Fujitora can do that, and Akainu can do this, and Ryokugyu can do that, so it's a bit iffy. Always a good day when you're streaming, bro. Keep it up. Well, thank you, Zakaruga. There will be another one. I still need to check because the state of play for... wow, that's a lot of messages. The state of play for Borderlands 4 is going to be dropping at 5 o'clock later today, and I'm just double-checking to make sure I don't have to go anywhere, so that way I can do a live reaction to that state of play, because it's going to be over 20 minutes of new footage. Gameplay, guns, characters, and abilities. So you already know I can't wait to tune into that. But overall, these were good chapters of One Piece, but the chaos is just getting even worse for this series, and I'm all here for it, because Oda does his best work when there's chaos in the One Piece world, and there's a lot of it in Elbaf. How many hours till then? I mean, if we're going from Pacific time, it'll be 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's 1:53 right now, so, it'll be at 5. Or whatever equates to 5 in your time zone. Whatever equates to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What state of play? Oh, wait, I missed that. What state of play is coming up? The state of play showcase of Borderlands 4. The one I've been talking about for so long, been waiting to hear news about it. It's dropping at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time later this evening. And it's going to be over 20 minutes worth of gameplay. So yes. Also, Borderlands 4 has moved up their release date, so it's going to be dropping sooner in September rather than on the 23rd as it was originally. It's going to be dropping on September 12th instead. So yeah. But yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been a wonderful audience. Thank you for your time. Oh, I am watching that. So am I! So am I! You have no idea. We finally get to find out who the Siren is, hopefully, and find out what her abilities are. Tell me why I've waited for this so long. Tell me why, that's why I made up this song. Oh, I can't wait to see the state of play that makes this a good day. You've been wonderful, ladies and gentlemen. All I can say to you is, hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. So have a fantastic day, and once again, as always, later, peoples!